Welcome to the early days. I'm Jackie Rae. This podcast is a presentation of Prowse Barrett. Today we have an awesome conversation with the new CEO of the Edmonton Elks, Chris Morris. And if you are on a leadership journey, he is as well, taking over a new role with the Edmonton Elks. You're going to learn some wonderful insights that he has used, not only of his years playing football, but also coaching football at the U of A for more than a dozen years. And now he is leading a storied franchise. This is a great conversation, not only about the business of football, but you'll be able to take away some incredible leadership lessons. Chris, welcome to Early Days.
Thanks very much for having me.
You started October, you were named as the Big Cheese Doodle?
Yeah, end of October. It's funny, I got off I coached my last game at the University of Alberta, got on a bus. The buses broke down. So we were on basically overnight from Regina to here. I got off the bus, got on in my car, rode over to Larry's garage where we met in Larry's garage, and he hired me. So yeah, it was very, very quick. And like the next 2 days later, I started. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind.
And you're no stranger to the Elks organizations, obviously, because you played 14 seasons for them.
Yeah, a long time ago now, but I'm no stranger to the people who are there and sort of the legacy that's there and sort of the expectation that exists with being part of the organization.
And I think we'll talk on that a lot, but I think what has been your biggest realization since taking over in these last few months?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think when you're on the outside looking in and you see some of the negative things that have happened there over the last 5 or 6 years, you get this kind of image in your mind of what it's going to look like. And don't get me wrong, there were lots of things that were broken when I got there, and there were lots of things that needed to be addressed right away. But there's also a lot of really, really good people there who really care deeply about the organization, who want it to be successful, who are willing to work very, very hard for it to be successful. There's been some dysfunction going on there, so it's hard sometimes for people to shine under those circumstances. But I think my biggest realization about the organization is that there are people who deeply care about it there, and I think that's something very, very strong you can build a foundation around.
Let's talk about that foundation, because what was, let's say you walked in, what was the first thing you went, whoa, we're changing this right away?
Yeah, I think there were some things going on with the football part. So if you think of the Edmonton Elks, and there's basically two components to it. Well, there's lots of components, but the two main ones I was sort of looking at when I came in and needed to be addressed was there's the football side where, you're dealing with the people who put together a football team, coach that football team, organize that football team, hold them accountable. And then there's the business part that's designed to get people into the stands to enjoy that product. When I first got there, there were some really nice people on the football side, but the degree of accountability, the degree of professionalism, some of the things that were really cornerstones to what existed when I was a member of the organization weren't quite to the standard that I thought needed them to be. And so that to me was it was an immediate thing that needed to happen. And that's where we made some significant changes on the football side. And for me, it was very, very comforting to have someone like Ed Hervey available to bring in, because I trust Ed, I know he has the same core values as I do in regards to what we'd like to see and build from a football perspective. So that standpoint to me, that was the number one thing I noticed that was like, okay, this doesn't look the same as what it did when I was here playing. So that was something that was very, very easy to sort of put into place and to sort of get organized. The second part was the business part. And the business part, it wasn't that the people there weren't caring and weren't understanding and weren't intelligent and professional and highly capable. The problem was they just kept coming and going. There was so much turnover in the business side, and so many of them hadn't been there for more than 1 or 2 years that it's almost impossible to build any sort of continuity or build something that can be long lasting and have initiatives that build on themselves with that much turnover. So to me, one of the biggest pieces to do was we have to identify, what are we going to stand for here? What are we going to do? And then we have to have people understand that they're going to be here long term. We want people that believe in the same core values, that are willing to do work in a certain way. And if you're willing to do those things, if you're willing to rally around those things, you're going to be here long term, and we want to build around you. So building that sense of culture and that sense of belonging there was a big part for me. And I think we're still in the process of doing that. But the turnover of our staff is something that really has to change, and we have to start building around people who want to be there and who can do a good job.
Well, you think the last two times when you won the Grey Cup with the Elks, that was 03, 05. And I remember back then you always were dealing with the same people.
Yeah. And that's, for me, like,
Yeah.
I talked to the front office, like Marie answered the phone, Shona dealt with the community service. There were always basically the same people in the business side of things for almost the entire 14 years I was with the organization. So for me to get there, and imagine on my first day, there's a couple of people that have been around for a while. You start asking questions and like, no one's been to the playoffs in the whole organization. And it's incredible to me that would be the case. And like most of the people had been there 2 years or less. There was just such a lack of continuity. And how, like, you talk about the Elks being and the Eskimos being like a historic franchise, right? Historic, like so much tradition, legacy, all those things. No one knows those things because they just there was no continuity. There was no torch being passed from one person to the other. There was just so much turnover. So those are things we want to bring back. We want to bring back a sense of culture of family and belonging. And that if you believe in these things and if you want to build something in this way, that it's going to be a safe place for you to be and you're going to be here long term, and we're going to work with you and we're going to make sure that we keep you here as part of the organization. So like I said, those are the things, those are the cultural pieces we're building around right now.
And and one's got to feed the other. You address the on-field product because obviously you got to start winning. That helps the marketing.
Yeah, I'll say this. It's a funny analogy I've been using for a while here with this, and it's like you can have the nicest house in the world, and it can be beautiful. You have the wainscoting and beautiful paint and central air and all those different things, and that's kind of, I believe, the work that some of the people have been doing within our organization for years. They've been working really, really hard. But there's been a skunk living in our house. And the fact that you can't win, and it doesn't matter how nice the house is, if it stinks, it stinks. And we have to get that going. The football product is the catalyst for this business. And we can have everything else. And don't get me wrong, there's a million things we need to do on the business side as well. And there's so many things we need to be better at. But we have to get that right. Otherwise, the rest of it just really doesn't matter. So getting the football side solidified, getting our starting quarterback in place, getting a general manager who really knows the league and who's going to hold people accountable and to a standard of excellence, getting who I think is the best young, fresh head coach in the league in place. Like those things are really going to help us. And those are things that are going to really lead the pathway forward for us to get that football piece sorted out.
Because you're in the sports business, yeah, but you're also in the entertainment business.
Yeah. And that's, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay in the focus through the course of the year? And there's so many ways now, you talk about social media, you talk about creating content and finding ways to get into fans and into their living rooms and into their lives as you go through. Besides just the football piece and just the season, we have to figure out ways to make ourselves marketable. I'll tell you, like, if you're going to be marketable, you need some people that the fans can relate to. You need players who have been here for more than 1 year. If players come and go every year, it's really hard to have any sort of marketable plan where the fans are engaging with our team. So one of our biggest strategies, and Ed feels very strongly about this the same way I do, is we have to have certain people here for long term. Like you try to sign 2-year contracts, try to make it so that we have the kind of people we want here and keep them here for more than 1 or 2 years, keep them here for between 5 and 10 years, which is what a CFL career is. And if we can do that, we're going to be in really, really good shape to stay relevant. And, we base our marketing, we base our content around those people, that group, that team that are connected to our community. If we can do that, we're going to be able to create hooks for the community to latch onto us and for us to be relevant and for us to be part of the community all through the year, as opposed to just during the season.
Yeah, it can't just be game days, can it?
No, because it's just like there's 10 games and then playoffs, right? So if that's the only time you're relevant in the city, you're probably not doing all you can to market and to be a viable product in the city. So for us, we want to be relevant all year long, and that's a part of that is our marketing team, a part of that is our ticketing team, but a part of that also is us building getting a bunch of guys to come in here and play football that want to be part of the community. They don't want to just come here and leave. They want to come here. They want to grow. They want to, raise their families here. They want to get jobs here in the off season. They want to be part of Edmonton. And if we can create a team here, much like it was a few years ago here, like where they want to live here. They want to be here in the off season, and we create incentives for them to do that. Once they live here for a couple of years, you fall in love with the city, and this is where they stay, as has been the case with so many different players over the years. So for me, when you talk about making us viable year long and making us so that people can engage with us year round, it starts with having lots of community members playing for our team and caring about our community. And it's a give and take between ourselves and the city.
And even with the employees that you talked about, it's not just the players, it's those employees that are also your ambassadors. So it's all feeding into that same system that you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. That sense of family, that sense of belonging, that sense of like when you associate with us, when you contact us, when you do business with us, you feel good about it because we are a family organization. We feel good about ourselves. We want other people to be part of us. It's not transactional. We're not just using you to get something from you and then sort of moving on. We want to exist in partnership with you, and we want to be part of helping make this community a better place. And I think that's the football team in Edmonton is here to make the city better. It's a part of the community. It's a blessing we have to organize a professional team in a way that serves as a service or an asset to the city. And I think you have to have people who think that way. Like the city's not here for us. Like we're here for this community, and we're here to give this community a sense of civic pride, give this community a sense of how to do things that are really at a standard of excellence, right? And give them an exemplar. And it's our responsibility to do that. We're blessed to have the positions we have in professional sports. So to me, it really is about that mindset, about us servicing this community in this city.
The CFL, let's talk a bit about that itself, because it's evolving too, and it's had some challenges as well as a league. What do pro teams, do you feel, have to do things differently today to make sure the fans are engaged with their nanosecond attention spans?
Yeah, and I think the nanosecond is the big thing you just talked about there, right? And it's like people process information differently than they used to. Like I can remember when I was a kid, I would get up and anything that had to do with football, I could sit there and look at it for an hour. And I would just watch it, and I'd watch it over and over again. But nowadays, kids and families, like you need smaller chunks of information to keep yourself relevant. And I think when you look at social media and you look at all the different ways to engage with fans, we have to, as a league, figure out different ways to touch and then have them think about us, as opposed to having to maintain people's attention for 2-3 hours at a time, right? And I think even as they process our game, we have to give them other things to do while they're watching the game, whether it be engaging in, and I know the sports betting piece is a big part for the adult community, and that's how the NFL's really taken their whole business to another level. Is like people aren't just watching the game, they're watching every single element of the game, and they're invested in it because they're either involved in some sort of sports betting thing, or they're involved in every little aspect of it's important. It's little nanoseconds of time that the NFL has managed to break their league down into, which really makes people excited about watching it. And there's always something new. Every second there's something new to draw their attention. So I think that's where we have to move as a league. And I think we're starting to move in that direction. We've had some good initial move towards gathering data and using that data to our advantage, and creating platforms with which we can have fans engage with those nanoseconds that you talked about. But we're still on that journey right now. We need to keep building it.
You, as a coach of the U of A Golden Bears for a dozen years, how do you feel that has helped prepare you for this role? Yeah,
it's funny. All the things we had to do at U of A have to be done here. It's almost just like a smaller version of what pro football is. The advantage I have here is I don't have to do it all myself. Like when I was at U of A, I had 2 other staff members and a few other assistant coaches that helped. And I always thought it was my job, just let them coach football. I'll deal with the administrative stuff. I'll deal with the social media stuff. I'll deal with the budgeting. I'll deal with every little aspect that has to do with anything besides football, so that my guys that are coaching, that I've brought in to coach, can just do that. Here, I have all sorts of tools and all sorts of people who work with me and all sorts of weapons to use to address. I have people who are good at social media, and they do that. I have marketing people. I have ticketing people. I have my football staff who I have an incredible amount of trust in. And I think this model here, U of A prepared me to be here because I had to do all of those things myself. And when I get here, it's like, man, I've got all these great people who want to do these things and want to be involved in it, and they're great at it. They're not trying to do 20 things and be good at each one. They can be great at the things they do. And I think that's the big thing that U of A really helped me with, is sort of understand a lot of the things that need to be accomplished. And now I have some experts to hand it over to and to delegate to.
So that would be your leadership style, I would imagine. Then you let people do their jobs. Like, do you delegate but don't interfere?
Yeah, I very much believe in service leadership. I think I'm here to put people in the best possible position to be successful. I believe that if I hire someone and put them in charge of an area, if I micromanage them and don't let them own that area, they're really not doing the best that they could do. What they're doing is they're doing what I tell them to do, as opposed to what they're passionate about, as opposed to what they're building themselves. Now, I need to be there. And for me, the biggest aspect of my job is making sure everybody understands the core values with which our organization operates. Like, what do we stand for? When people talk to us, how do they feel? And then, however you want to build your department, as long as it reflects those core values, I'm very comfortable with it. And we have lots of dialogue and lots of conversations, but I don't think any organization of this size or larger can be built around one person telling everybody what to do on a daily basis. I just don't think it works that way. I think there need to be some common core beliefs, and my job is to make sure I have people who truly do believe in those things. And as the years go by here, we'll get more and more aligned as to what those are and to how each one of those departments falls into that sort of that belief of how an effective organization can be run.
So you've had to make obviously some tough decisions coming to the Elks since the end of October. What has been the most difficult thing for you as the new leader?
Yeah, I think when you look at what we had, the football piece to me was difficult because we had to let a lot of people go. And to me, it was just a matter of, again, I look at the core values around which I want to build an organization. And there were several of those core values which I did not feel were reflected in any way in which that part of our business was being run. I thought it was a very different approach to how business is conducted. I wasn't comfortable with it, so I had to make some pretty significant and immediate changes there. What's always hard is knowing whether or not, like, you have these beliefs. For me, integrity is a big part of it. Continuity is important. Innovation, like, those things are all important to me. And I'm trying to assess staff members as to whether or not it's important to them. And that's really hard to do over a series of 2 or 3 months. Like, you have to really say, okay, here's what's important to me. Here's your departments. And talk and communicate and let things evolve. And then just see how things progress a little bit. Because there's no way you can say to me that me coming in and sort of, okay, well, let's just replace everybody again. Because I don't think that these people may not have the same core values as me, or as what I think is for an effective organization. There's no possible way we would have been as far ahead as we are right now. And to me now, it's about, okay, everybody understands, I think, what we want to stand for, what I think this organization should stand for in this community. Now it's up to me to continue to coach and sort of emulate and sort of just encourage people that is the best way to do things, and to get them operating in that way, and then support their efforts, give them what they need to be successful. I'll say this, Larry and Deb, they have done a great job of giving us the resources we need to be successful. There's been a lot of things that have happened with Edmonton Elks football over the years, and many of them can be attributed to just not having enough resources. The board had not enough money to get a lot of things done. When that happens, you start cutting down on things. Instead, somebody leaves, well, let's not hire them. We'll exist without them. Something breaks down, we'll just patch it together. And what happens is your infrastructure from an organizational standpoint starts to decline and decline and decline and decline. And then you don't have the human resource power to make things happen that other places are doing. Like, when you look at our staffing compared to other programs or other CFL teams, we had about maybe 2/3 of the staff of several of the other teams, almost half some of the other ones when I got here. So that is very, very hard to maintain the same level of service as what like a Winnipeg would have or a Saskatchewan would have. No, they have a lot more revenue than us coming in, so you could see why they would have that. And I think when you look at that previous board and you look at some of the tough decisions they had to make as volunteers, what do? Do you issue another huge deficit, or do you say, okay, we're going to cut some positions? They were in a very, very difficult spot. So we're in a position now where Deb and Larry have made a conscious decision to build this out, to build the engine of this organization, to put some things in place that at the beginning may not generate revenue that moment, but 2-3 years from now, they are going to be generating revenue for us, and it'll create a model that'll be sustainable long-term for Edmonton Elk football. And I think getting people in the ownership position to understand that you just can't keep cutting everything and then everything, okay, that's the only way we can possibly get caught up, understanding that we're going to have to invest. And they are investing in the team, and they are investing in our community to make sure this organization gets back to where it really should be.
And you're talking about Larry and Deb, our owners of the Edmonton Elks. What is the relationship that you have with them? Do you work closely, or have they just given you saying, okay, go for it?
No, I talk to them very often. I'd say at least once or twice a week I talk with them. They're down south right now, so they, you know what, they're trying to enjoy a little bit of time off here. But I do talk with Larry and Deb quite often to just talk generally about which direction we want to be going in. I think for them, it's just important that it be done a certain way and that it be done the right way. And again, them getting to know me and me getting to know them, it's important that we have that constant dialogue, right? So I wouldn't say that they're not micromanaging. They're not saying this needs to get done, that needs to get done, or it needs to get done in a specific way, but they're very, very involved and consciously wanting this place to be great. And that's what they ask about. How could we do this better? What could we do here? And I think they are just very, very excited about the direction we're heading and the potential we have as an organization.
So to the fans, I think you've said it throughout our interview that where this team is headed is, the very proud franchise that it's always been, but that core community, that's probably the big message you want to send out today.
Yeah. We're no longer a community-owned team, but we are this community's team. And we need to be engaged with this community, and we need to serve this community, and we need to make sure that everyone understands that we want to be a part of it. We are not this organization that is above anybody here or thinking that we do something that is above what people of the community are part of. We are an essential part of what I think Edmonton is. And I think the Edmonton Elks and the Edmonton Eskimos have always been a part of Edmonton. And if you look at that and you say, okay, how do we serve this community the best possible way? Having businesses work with us, to serve the community in different ways, by bringing kids here, by helping different non-for-profit groups be successful, finding ways to make sure that this organization is consistently looking for ways to make Edmonton a better place to be, a better place to live. Those are the core values we want to sort of build this thing around. Not, well, if we just win football games, that'll be enough. That's not enough. We need to be a core, a pillar of this community. And I think that's, if nothing else, that's what we want to build around, because I think that's what's going to lead us to being successful long term.
And let's close this show off with some final thoughts. What piece of advice do you live by that helps you navigate these big challenges?
Yeah, I always think, like, a long time ago, I had a coach when I was in university. He always talked about like the wake you leave behind you as a person, right? And as you go through life, you leave impressions and what people think about you and the way you lead your life and the things you've done, whether positive or negative. And I can think, even to just my first few months on the job here, how many people have come up and talked to me with positive things about something that I might have done that I didn't even think about when I was a teacher, or didn't even think about when I was a school administrator, or didn't even think about when I was a coach, that had really nothing to do with the business at hand, but had lots to do with just doing things the right way, looking after someone, making sure that you're putting their interests ahead of yours, making sure you're doing everything possible to help somebody in that situation. I think that's good business. Good business is building good relationships. Good business is making sure that it's not a transaction. I'm just going to get what I can from you and then I'm going to move on. That's not good business. That's short term. That's short sighted. And I think for me, if I was going to give any advice, is make sure that wake you leave behind you is about service, is about like caring about people, because everything comes around at some point. At some point in time, you're going to be dealing with people multiple times. And if you've shown that those are the values that you have, you're going to be way better off long term. And whether you talk about it just from a business standpoint or from the right thing to do standpoint, they're very much aligned. And I think that's a huge piece of advice that I think a lot of young people in this dog eat dog world, they got to that's not what it's about. Long term, you're going to leave that wake behind you, and you want people to be saying the right things 10, 15 years from now.
Because it makes it a better community.
Absolutely.
There you go. Chris Morris, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Chris Morris from the Edmonton Elks, and get your Elks tickets right away. And also a big thank you to our sponsor, Prowse Barrett. We are reminded always that entrepreneurship is a path filled with learning, with growth. And Prowse Barrett is here. We ask you to consider them in the near future, whether it's advice on commercial transactions, protecting your intellectual property, or navigating employment law. Prowse Barrett has the expertise to guide you. Here's to your success on the journey ahead. Thanks for tuning in to Early Days.
This series is proudly produced by the team at Road 55. Road 55 creates content that connects. For more information, visit our website at road55.ca.